I never thought I'd be the guy telling this kind of story. You always think it happens to other people who weren't really in love or didn't put in the work. But that's the first thing infidelity teaches you, no one is immune. I was with Claire for almost 7 years. We weren't perfect, but we were best friends. We traveled together, adopted a dog, had inside jokes that lasted for years. I thought we had that once-in-a-lifetime connection. And maybe that's why it crushed me when I found out. It wasn't some one-night stand. It wasn't sex. It was worse, she fell in love with someone else. She met him at work. His name was Adam. It started innocent, like these things usually do. They had a project together, long lunches, and eventually, long talks. She said it wasn't physical. That almost made it worse. She wanted him, emotionally. She went to him when she was overwhelmed. She laughed with him like she used to laugh with me. The moment I found the messages, my world tilted. There were no explicit photos or sexts, just paragraphs of her soul laid bare to someone who wasn't me. I remember shaking, trying to breathe, scrolling through texts that felt like punches. She had shared her real self with someone else. Not her body, her heart. Confronting her was like watching a mirror shatter in slow motion. She didn't deny it. She cried. A lot. And then I cried. A lot more. I wasn't angry, not at first. Just numb, heartbroken, humiliated, lost. The weeks that followed were torture. I moved into the guest room. We stopped eating together. We barely spoke. Every silence was filled with unspoken questions. Was I not enough? Did she ever really love me? Was this my fault? We tried therapy. The first few sessions were brutal. I wanted to scream. She wanted to explain. The therapist told us something I'll never forget: infidelity doesn't just come from nowhere. It grows in the silence, the neglect, the disconnection. That hit me. I started to ask myself the hard questions, too. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, I wanted to leave. Some nights, she held me while I cried. Sometimes I'd catch her smiling at a text and feel my stomach twist even though it was just her mom. The trust was broken. The scar was there, even if it healed. But we didn't give up. Slowly, painfully, we began rebuilding. We started dating again, awkward dinners, hesitant laughter. We relearned each other. She showed up. I showed up. We made it real again. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. It wasn't a loud discovery. No dramatic confrontation. No lipstick on the collar or unfamiliar perfume on her jacket. It was quiet, subtle, just a vibe that something wasn't quite right anymore. Claire had been distant for a while, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes, answering my questions like she was somewhere else. At first, I thought maybe work was stressing her out. But the space between us had been growing like a slow crack in a windshield, barely noticeable at first, until suddenly, it was all you could see. One night, she left her laptop open in the kitchen. She never did that. Something in my gut just told me to look. I wasn't proud of it. I had never snooped through her stuff before. But I did that night. And I found them: the messages, the emails, the late-night confessions. It wasn't graphic. No sex talk, no hotel rooms, no "I want to rip your clothes off" kind of thing. In a way, I wish it had been. Because what I found was worse. It was real. She was pouring her soul into these messages to another man. Adam, her coworker. They'd been getting closer for months, and I didn't even notice. She was telling him things I hadn't heard from her in years. Things about her dreams, her fears, even how she felt disconnected in our relationship. She told him he made her feel seen. That she could breathe around him. That phrase hit me like a freight train. She could breathe around him. What did that mean? That I was suffocating her? That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just casual flirting. This wasn't a mistake made at a bar after too many drinks. She had fallen in love with someone else while sleeping next to me every night. That's what ripped me apart. I didn't confront her right away. For 2 days, I just sat with it. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept reading the messages over and over, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. That maybe it wasn't emotional cheating. But let me tell you something I learned the hard way: when your partner starts giving your emotional seat to someone else, it's not just cheating. It's abandonment. When I finally confronted her, she didn't even try to lie. She just crumbled, said she never meant for it to go that far. Said she didn't realize how lonely she'd been feeling until she started talking to Adam. I asked her if they ever slept together. She said no, and I believed her, but that didn't make it any better. If anything, it made it worse. Because she gave him everything else. Her thoughts, her energy, her honesty, things that had once been mine. I felt small, completely unimportant, like a background character in my own relationship. It was like watching someone slowly fall out of love with you and not being able to stop it. And that does something to your self-worth. You start questioning every moment, wondering if anything was ever real. Was she thinking about him when we were at dinner last week? When we were in bed last night? Did she smile at me because she meant it or because she was trying to hide what she felt for someone else? The worst part wasn't just the betrayal. It was the intimacy they shared. Emotional cheating is so often brushed aside like it's not that bad, but I promise you it wrecks you. Because you can't compete with someone's emotional fantasy. You can't fight for something you didn't even know you were losing. I cried in the shower. I punched the steering wheel in my car like a cliché. I thought about leaving, just grabbing a bag and going. But I stayed, not because I forgave her, not because I was okay, but because I didn't know who I was without her. And I think, in some twisted way, that was the scariest realization of all. The morning after I confronted Claire felt like waking up in someone else's life. My bed didn't feel like my bed. My house didn't feel like home. She made coffee like she always did, but everything about it was off. The sound of the mug on the counter, the way she didn't make eye contact, even the way she said good morning. All of it felt like someone trying to act normal while the walls were on fire. I slept in the guest room for the first time that night. It was cold, not just physically, but emotionally cold. It felt like exile. I remember staring at the ceiling for hours, just listening for her footsteps, wondering if she was crying. Wondering if she was texting him again. Every vibration from her phone made my chest tighten. I didn't trust her. I didn't trust anything anymore, not even my own instincts. We went from talking every day, sharing the smallest details of our lives, to complete silence. That silence was deafening. It wasn't peaceful. It was full of tension, loaded with everything we weren't saying. Every meal felt like a negotiation. How long do we sit here? What do we talk about now that I know she gave her heart to someone else? The dog sensed it too. Funny how animals can pick up on things we try so hard to hide. He stayed near me constantly, like he was afraid I might vanish too. That was the only comfort I had in those early days. A dog that didn't understand betrayal. Just loyalty. The first time she tried to talk about it, I couldn't handle it. She sat across from me on the edge of the couch, her voice shaking, eyes red. She said, "I never stopped loving you." And I just laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know how to respond to that. How do you love someone and still hand your soul to someone else? It felt like a slap disguised as a hug. We started therapy 2 weeks later. That was my condition if she wanted me to stay. I wasn't sure it would help, but I had nothing to lose. The first session was brutal. She cried through half of it. I barely spoke. When I did, all I could say was, "I don't know who you are anymore." Because I didn't. The woman who used to be my safe place now felt like a stranger who held my heart like it was something disposable. Therapy uncovered a lot of hard truths. We had been drifting for a while long before Adam came into the picture. We stopped doing little things for each other. Stopped talking about how we were really feeling. I'd come home from work, tired and quiet. She felt invisible. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. Still, knowing that doesn't make the betrayal easier. It just makes it more complicated. One of the hardest things to admit was that I wasn't just angry, I was scared. Scared of being hurt again. Scared of wasting more time. Scared that I'd never trust her or anyone again. Every time she said she was going to work late, my brain would spiral. Was she with him? Was she lying again? That kind of paranoia eats you alive. And the worst part is, you feel crazy for feeling it. But it's real. It's valid. We had to relearn how to talk to each other. I had to stop pretending I was okay just to keep the peace. She had to sit with my pain without trying to fix it. That was hard for both of us. Because fixing things used to be our thing. Now, we were just sitting in the rubble, wondering if we could build anything again. There were nights when I'd stare at her while she slept, wondering what she was dreaming about. Him? Us? A version of her life where none of this happened? I couldn't stop myself from imagining a parallel universe where we were still happy, untouched. But that's not the world we lived in. We were here in the aftermath. Forgiveness isn't this clean, noble thing they show you in movies. It's not some epiphany moment where you cry, hug, and suddenly everything's okay. No, forgiveness is ugly. It's messy. It's crying in the car after you swore you were past it. It's waking up beside her and having to remind yourself you chose to stay. The first time she said I'm sorry in therapy, I just sat there. Not because I didn't hear her but because part of me didn't want to believe it. I was still stuck in the loop of those messages, replaying the way she called him the only person who really gets me. I didn't want her apology. I wanted it to have never happened. But healing had to start somewhere. And for us, it started in the smallest of ways. One night, I came home late from work, totally drained. She had cooked dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta. But she sat there and waited for me to eat with her like she used to. No phone, no distractions, just us. We didn't say much that night, but I remember the silence didn't feel like punishment anymore, it felt like possibility. Like maybe we were learning to just be together again. We made a rule, no more walking on eggshells. If we were going to rebuild this thing, we had to be brutally honest, even when it hurt. And man, did it hurt sometimes. She told me things I didn't want to hear about how she felt invisible, how she didn't know how to reach me anymore before Adam came into the picture. And I had to tell her how broken she made me feel, how every time she smiled at her phone, I wanted to throw it out the window. We both had to own our part in the breakdown. Not the cheating that was her choice. But the slow erosion of intimacy, the lack of emotional connection. I couldn't pretend I was blameless. That was humbling as hell. There were good days. Days we'd go on walks and laugh like we used to. Days we rediscovered things about each other. Like how she still hated tomatoes, how I still couldn't remember where we kept the cinnamon. Little things, stupid things, but they mattered. They reminded us we weren't just a broken couple trying to survive, we were two people who once chose each other. And then there were bad days. Triggers came out of nowhere. A random song, a scene from a show, a joke that hit too close to home. Sometimes I'd shut down. Sometimes she'd try to overcompensate and end up making it worse. There were nights I slept in the guest room again, not out of spite, but because I needed space to feel my own hurt without performing healing for her. We tried a weekend getaway once. Just the two of us. Thought maybe a change of scenery would help. It did, and it didn't. We had fun, sure. But the last night there, I looked at her and asked, would you have told me if I hadn't found the messages? And she didn't answer right away. That silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I think that's when I realized we were healing, but we'd never forget. You don't forget that kind of pain. But what I also learned is you don't have to. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing to stay anyway. Choosing to love someone in spite of the wreckage. It's deciding, every single day, that you're in. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Eventually, I started to see her again. Not the woman who betrayed me, but the woman who was trying. Genuinely trying. She gave up contact with him. She let me read her messages if I needed to. She didn't just say she loved me, she proved it in her actions, over and over. And little by little, I started to believe her again. We're not who we used to be. That version of us died the day I found those messages. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we're building something better now, not perfect, but honest. Raw. Real. I still have days where the doubt creeps in. But they're fewer now. And when they come, we talk about them. No secrets. No shame. I don't know what the future holds. I can't promise forever. But I can say this, we're still here. Still choosing each other. And that means something. That means everything.